And as everyone joins in, I will share a brief introduction about Cindy before we dive into today's beautiful topic. So, Cindy is an internationally recognized and experienced executive and leadership coach and an MCC Master Certified Coach since 2014. She's also an ACTC since 2022. She has more than 20 years of experience in the field of executive coaching, leadership development, program design. I think when I was reading Cindy's introduction, I was preparing it. I was like, it is so huge, and she has done so many things that I'm already awed in sharing all of these with you. So, more than 20 years of experience in the field of executive coaching, leadership development, program design, speaking at events, leading webinars, and facilitation. Her approach in her work has been of cultivating safety and supportive spaces for leaders and partnering and co-creating leadership engagements to drive systemic organization change and success. And I feel because I have, she has taught me as well as my mentor. So she shares the same safety and supportive space and partnering approach in our coaching learning journey as well. She is an accomplished and sought after mentor coach, coach educator, supporting emerging and evolving coaches. And she brings very high level of effortless coaching and mastery coaching approach when we learn from her. She is a director of education with Kocharya, and she has served in different roles with the ICF chapters. I think she was the president for the ICF South Africa chapter for a very long time. Yes. So thank you so much, Cindy. We are delighted and honored and privileged to have you today with us. And we are looking forward to have this session today from you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rashmi. Thanks, everyone. I'm sure if you spoke about yourself, you're also going to look even more impressive. You know, when somebody says a lot about you in a few minutes, it looks great. Thank you. So, coaches, you got a sense that I've been around for a long time as a credentialed coach. It's now 21 years. So I started coaching at a time when coaching was just growing. The profession was growing. And a lot that I did was indeed to build a profession, mainly in South Africa and on the continent of Africa. I also had very strong links with EMEA because, for ICF, we were in the same region, Middle East, Europe, Africa, UK. So I traveled a lot in those areas. And when it came to being with other chapters. So let's dive into today's topic. And hopefully, as we go along in this webinar, I'll get to know a lot more about you. If not, invite me to LinkedIn and I'll know more about you. So today's topic, a topic that impacts all of us, whether it's conscious, subconscious, it's there. Somewhere it's there and we're aware of it. Biases, values, and beliefs. So let me check with you. Let's talk about biases. There's no right and wrong definitions of how we talk about biases. At a foundational point, what are biases for you? Anything, anybody, feel free to talk.
Yeah, I can share if I may.
Yeah,
For me, biases
go ahead.
is something I believe in without really checking if it is true. So, and maybe even I don't know that I believe it. Something like that.
Mm.
I
Others?
think that it can also be cultural aspects that we have, I would say, embed, and that they will show when we listen others that they behave, they think differently in us, and so they are prejudgments, I would say.
Does it feel like a particular preference to you? Like you have a particular preference towards something and you lean towards something, and you always have, whenever you're listening to others, you have this leaning towards what sits best with you, like a confirmation bias. No matter what people says, there are some things in you, in your own mental models or in your own thinking, you think, but that's really what it is. And somebody is saying something otherwise. So in a few words, a bias is more a preference or an assumption, often unconscious, but it shapes our perception. It fits with the assumptions that we have inside us. Or if it's a cultural bias, then it fits in with our norms, what is specific and preference to the way we are culturally. You may have some examples of that for yourself. Do you? Anybody wants to share? Some people also have professional. Go ahead. Go ahead, Anastasia.
I think I can relate this in the beginning of my practice. I think I was biased to the speed of solving the problems, and I was thinking that it is the only right way to solve problems is to solve them with a very high speed. But after that, I understood that it's my bias, and some people need just more space and time, and maybe the need to not solve something right now. It was a discovery for me.
Absolutely. It's a lovely example. A good one is also professional bias. Sometimes we hold professionally, this is the way we need to show up. Professional bias in anybody else who doesn't fit that scope of what we define as professional bias, then of course they're wrong. They don't meet our standards. There are many biases. What are you thinking? Anybody has specific thoughts about yours? To the coaches that just joined, we are talking about the foundational values, biases, and beliefs, just touching on what they are. So Reshmi would probably know this when we are evaluating learners. The one guidance, very strong guidance, maybe more like a standard that we have. Every recording must be taken as a pass. You've got to hold that mindset. Every recording that you listen to and you evaluate is already a pass. And only when you start marking them, and you're looking for markers and bars, then only the absence or the missed opportunities will get marked against the coach. But the mindset we all start with is that all recordings are a pass. And you can imagine why, right? Because if we didn't start with a particular mindset and even you kind of even one, your biases will come up immediately. Especially when there's coaches of many cultures in one organizational space. So let's talk a bit about beliefs. Beliefs is quite interesting. Coaches, what do you think? What are beliefs for you?
Maybe it's something that I assume to be some universal truth for everyone just because it's truth for me.
Yeah, that's a good word, truth. Beliefs always feel like it's true. Anybody else?
Well, it can be related to something that you really think that it should be in one way, and that you cannot accept that it's in another way, or that somebody can think it in an opposite way or different way or whatever. But it's quite the same that Anastasia was saying, quite similar.
And that always stirs up a little bit of emotions too, right, Esther?
Yeah.
Yeah, when it's our way and others are coming up with something else. Anyone else?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I mean. Okay, I'll go. Sorry. Okay, your hand's up. Sorry. I would say that I think that they're taught. So the beliefs are, they're how you were raised, where you were raised. So they're, and oftentimes they're so well ingrained in ourselves that we don't even know that we possess them. Yeah. So it could be, like, as you had pointed out, Cindy, cultural, you know, religious, whatever it is. And so those are often, difficult to pick apart and to pull away from ourselves and have a good view of.
Absolutely. Spot on. I mean, I didn't see your hand because that yellow is very close to the background. Please go ahead.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say something very similar to Darcy, that the beliefs that we create them since we are very small, young, according to, to become ourselves, actually. This can be education of the family, this can be education of the school system, but also the paths that we created and we learned ourselves. And then they are becoming an habit or truth for us while looking to outside world.
And it also, exactly what you're saying, I mean, it also sticks with us. It stays with us, like this pattern or this habit stays with us. And even when we make a conscious decision to redefine it or to make it less harsh for ourselves, it actually is quite difficult. It takes a long time for that to happen because it's so grounded in ourselves as the truth. Anyone else? Toby?
Hello, everyone from Luxembourg. Now, from my side, I think I just highlights, how it is so easy to just have blind spots in terms of your beliefs. And I think one journey for me in terms of just how I've developed as a coach is just the value of the feedback and helping you get that distance from yourself, to see those ways of thinking, those beliefs that might have been very deeply rooted from, past experience from when you were growing up. Just being in a safe space where you can get feedback and shine a light on your own ways of being and your own beliefs as a coach can be so useful for your growth as a coach. So it really just echoes what other people have said as well, I think.
Thank you. That's very valuable what you just said. Belief shapes what we think is possible and how strong they are within us. They also influence how we listen and what we listen for. Yeah, coaches, what do you think? They also influence what we are listening for. It's like we hold lenses on what we are listening for, mainly because of the beliefs we have. And the moment somebody says something that's with our belief or leaning towards ours, we're quite happy and we lean towards them. Friends become easier that way. Let's So I have two slides for you today, and I'll show them to you in a minute on values and beliefs and biases. But let's dive a bit into values before I do that. Again, coaches, what are they for you?
But I would say that values is something, again, that it's very deep in the person and something that can be hurt if we have a behavior in front of us that can go against our values.
Mm. So
And I
it
think
always feels, okay,
it's
go ahead.
stronger than beliefs for me. I would say more. I would say that beliefs are more sometimes on the head, and values are more in the heart. For me, I think. I don't know if.
It indeed feels that way for a lot of people, Esther. Many people describe it as values in the heart.
Okay. Yeah.
And for me, values. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
For me, values are some abstract conceptions that they help me to make sense of the world, to understand what is important for me and what is not so important. So I think from my values really depends to what I can hear from the words of the client, because I will be biased towards my values, to hear them, to grab them, and to develop them, I think.
Coaches have a lot of values. And many of the values are deeply embedded in integrity. Right from the beginning, when we start to become a coach, or we even start to think about it, we know some things true of coaching. The coach-client relationship is confidential. We hold that as gold, it becomes a value for us. So coaches have very deep sense of integrity that sits as values to their profession of coaching. You probably know that, right? You feel it inside you. I mean, we call it ethics, but we feel it more inside us. It's beyond the language of ethics. Like you would immediately have the signals come up for you, like warning bells, and then there's something sitting very close to your heart there. Anybody else want to say something about values?
Them as a windows, how I look from inside of me to outside. These are the ways how I square the world, I guess.
So I also want to dive in now and say, well, that's a very good indicator of how we coach our clients also, what we see and how we question. But let's hold that for a thought. I'll share screen with you. Can I get permission to share screen,
Yes.
please?
Yes.
Okay. As I said, it's just 2 slides. One is on the competencies, and the other one on the explanation of values and beliefs, and I'll just make this bigger.
We can see your screen now.
I don't think it's on the
slide share.
now you can see, right?
It's not in the share mode.
Now you can see it?
No, yeah.
Okay. I think my screen's a bit off, but as long as you can see it, right? Okay.
It's good.
Yeah. So you can see some things here about how values, biases, and beliefs shape us, or they're this guiding light for us, or when we look through our lens, what we see for ourselves. First, it's for self, then it's for others, and then it's how we show up within systems. And the systems could be your community, your work, your friends, the wider world that you associate with. It could also be things like when you're listening to the news, what do you hear and how it sits with you? We know some things show up and it sits deeply with our values, our biases, and our beliefs. And some things we react because we know we hold particular mental models within ourselves. Values are very deeply held principles. I tried to get a heart here. Oh, I hope you can see it. For values. So I'm going to stop the next slide. Let's talk to it now. So, in our coaching competencies, a lot of the competencies, a lot of the markers or sub-competency points are deeply embedded in values, beliefs, and biases. We spoke a bit about ethics and integrity, so let's leave out competency 1 for now. But competency 2 talks a lot about this coaching mindset. And you may have noticed the words there, right? How we mentally prepare for sessions, how we become aware of our self-awareness. So if you look at that entire core competency 2, how does a coach remain grounded, flexible, and open? It alludes to, look, our bias is a part of us, so are our values and beliefs. It's not like we can drop it or get rid of it. What we can do in coaching is simply to put it aside and remain there in service of the client. Don't let it influence us. So when core competency 2 talks about how do you mentally and emotionally prepare for a session, it's not telling you to let your bias disappear. It's simply saying, how do you put it aside and remain focused on the client? Yeah, we all hold bias. That's just human nature. Let's not talk about getting, let me get rid of my bias. You'll have another one that'll come up. It's okay. Just how do we remain in service of the client, fully present to the client? Core competency 3, trust and safety. Of course, if you don't hold that space of trust and safety, will the client ever go deeper and share with you any kind of values, beliefs that they're holding dear to them? That's quite relevant to how they work on their goals. Sorry, that's core competency 4. So I want to go there before I go to 3, which is establishing the agreement with the client. You would know this at the beginning of the session when a client brings a goal that they want to work on and you're working with them on ongoing sessions. you know, sometimes something is getting in the way of that goal. And it's only after a while when the client really feels a sense of trust and safety with the coach, would they open up about what's really beneath the goal. What are some of the reasons why they are not achieving their goals? And then comes, PCC marker 7.1. Coach will ask questions about values, beliefs, wants, needs, etc., etc. Yeah. So I'll dive into CC7, evoking awareness, because coaches, again, most of values, biases, and beliefs begin to unpack in this coaching, in this deep awareness phase where the client thought-provoking begins to show up, where the client feels safe enough to go deeper and evoking awareness begins to happen. And how do you know that? Because coach will ask questions on what's currently going on for the client, and then a deeper dive into any new or expanded thinking, any new or expanded feelings that may show up. And there's a subcompetency there that talks about assumptions and perceptions. Questions coach can ask around that. Of course, growth. So what did happen? Grow CC8 there, it's all about growth and client making progress and client taking some learnings away. That is honoring the client's value. That's the topic they brought for the session. That's the goal they want to work on. Client autonomy shows up in CC8, client choices, and they begin to walk away with something meaningful, something that's really important to them that they're making progress on. I'll stop here. Please ask your questions. I should have said something about maintain presence. Sorry, I asked you and I'm continuing. Allow me a moment. CC5 maintains presence. There's something there that alludes to we're going deeper, right? Where coach is curious to learn more about the client. You know that word curious shows up in presence. And something else supports it after you ask something curious. Silence, pause, and reflections gives the client the space to really talk about what was inside them, and now they can put words to it. I will stop screen share. We said a lot about coaching. Please go ahead and you share from your side.
I have a question. Sorry. How about when we are coaching somebody, at one point we detect that we have I would say, a values conflict, something that we don't feel in the same way than the client, but we need to be present with the client, managing ourselves with our, so what's the best way to approach?
So if it suddenly showed up in the session and it wasn't ongoing, but just showed up, I think you can, presence is maintains presence. Just ground yourself for a moment. The best way to ground yourself in a session is to ask an open-ended question to the client. Let them talk. And you take a moment to ground yourself as a coach. The session has to end, so just ground yourself, maintain your presence, and continue coaching until the end of the session. Then you can make a decision. Is this something once-off that showed up and I can cope with it? It was a learning moment for me and it's okay. Allow it to sit with you for some time, maybe a day or two, and see if it's okay. If it's okay, then you can carry on coaching the client. But there may be something in value conflicts that's showing up repeatedly. Now, as a coach, you got to make a different kind of a decision. Whether you're really in service of that client, for yourself, and for that coaching process, and for the client. And then think about it and make a decision. If you really can't coach that client, I'll give you an example.
Cindy, we can't hear you. Cindy?
Yeah, what?
Others can hear. I can't. I couldn't hear Cindy. I missed. Now we can hear you.
We lost you.
Oh,
From the example, we just couldn't hear from the when you were going to share the example.
okay. I'm going to share the example, but I was going to continue that thought. So, if it is an ongoing client and this repeated value conflict is showing up, now you got to have a different kind of conversation with yourself. And the conversation would be about, can I cope as a coach? Is this coaching process of value to the client? Yes. And then you make a choice about how you're going to end that relationship. So I once coached a client who was making a transition from a regional office into an office overseas, into another continent. And the expectation, I was doing internal executive coaching. No, I was an external coach doing executive coaching for a company. And so this client was their pride and joy because they were opening an office in some other place, in another continent. Of course, you can imagine all the investment about this person moving to go to open another office for them. Yep. An expansion for the company. Even I was excited to coach this client for the transition. And we sat down and coaching started, and the client just known to me. I did coach a client before. Oh, Cindy, I just got to share with you. I am not going to stay with the company for long. This is my opportunity to go overseas and start my own business. So I'm taking this job for that reason. Of course, I was a new PCC coach then. Didn't have a lot of skill set here around how to navigate difficult conversations. But the one thing I knew, my integrity was showing up as, no, I cannot coach this client. So I sat through the session, listened to everything. I was upset with myself thereafter that I didn't even say anything to this whole story happening. But I thought about it at home. I was about 3 years in that company doing executive coaching, and I didn't want to lose also that contract. You know what I'm saying, right? At that time, the very little contracts you get, you want to hang on to your own the company you're doing work for. So I waited a few days and I sent that client a message to say, listen, something personal has come up that I'm managing. I'm going to let the company know to find you another coach. Now, would I have done that now as a MCC? The answer is no. But I was a PCC coach. My advice to you, you must navigate it as best as you can on a difficult conversation. There is no right and wrong. You just navigate it as best as you can. And for whatever reasons, all those reasons will be attached to your values or your own integrity, the way you want to show up as a coach. So don't be harsh on yourself. Just do what you have to do in that moment when a value conflict shows up. Sorry, Toby, you were going to say something? Okay. Anybody else want to say something? So this values and beliefs is grounded in all our core competencies, right? Did you ever think about it like that? It's such a deep part of us.
I want to. It's not a question. It's a gratitude for your second slide. I think it's very wise that it looks like a planet. You know, the planet that formed from competencies that client and coach are constantly researching together. When and I this image put my imagination in the space, and coach and a client are like two astronauts, and these beliefs and values and biases are floating in the space like planets, and we just research them together. So it's very beautiful and full of space. I want to thank you for that image.
Thank you. I was trying to depict exactly that, but I was using the word world, the totality in our world. But it's a lovely way that you described it. So, coaches, I have a question for you. Let's explore it. How do you recognize there's a bias showing up? Darcy, you had a sweet smile on your face. Go ahead.
I don't know how sweet it is, but I usually get agitated. Like I'm like, smiling on the outside and not on the inside. So yeah. So and this is when the pause comes. Like it's not about me, So yeah, I'd say that's yeah. When I get agitated, yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Anybody else? How do you know when your bias is beginning to show up? Go ahead, Emil.
Well, I feel around my heart something itchy, and also I know that my
I
breathing.
mean, is there a way you can speak a bit louder? Like come closer to your
Oh, yeah,
device.
okay. Is that fine now? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel something around itchy around my heart, and then I know that my breathing changes. So that's why I immediately take action to calm my breathing down and concentrate on some of the physical, like I touch to my pen to really recenter myself, because I know that this is not about me. It's about the person who is over there.
Absolutely. That sense of knowing, most of the time, that's all we need, right? To just have that sense of knowing. Then it grounds us into how can we manage this difficult situation? Natalia, did you want to share?
Hi.
Hi.
Actually, I've been thinking that, we as coaches, we do work with our personality. And our personality is really integral, just a thing. And it includes our biases, our values, our beliefs. We're just made of this.
Mm,
And I love, the fact that we really need to be prepared just to be in a certain state when we start working with the person. And actually, I could detect if my bias arises when I see that the balance is somehow changed, that there is more of me in this conversation. When I feel this like reaction. And yeah, I think that we work, on our biases all the time because this is like coaching mindset. But there are certain things, probably based on our very deep values, which would shoot anyway. And I also had, such a case. And, I'm from Ukraine. We have a war now. And I have realized that I cannot work with men who left Ukraine not because of the work. I just, fled, as refugees. And I realized this. Just my son is just in the army, and I feel this. So I understand I cannot coach these people. And I had one opportunity and I said, no, thank you. Please look for another coach. I didn't explain, but I realized that it's not my client because I will have
Yeah,
to struggle with myself all the time and it won't be proper coaching, frankly speaking. And I
absolutely.
think that when our clients come to us, there also should be like a match, less biases, more common beliefs. You know, there are people with whom you even don't have such a problem. You even don't think it's so easy. It's like you're always in this flow. And then you actually have all the joy of this mutual work. So that's me. That's my
Yeah,
biases.
you touched on a beautiful point there, Natalia, because that's exactly one way we know, right? When we really look forward to some clients, and some clients go, you know, it's a difficult day today. I have to coach so and so. Yeah. Then we got to question ourselves, what's going on with us? What's going on here? What is getting in the way that we are always so inspired with every other client we get? And that's true. Coaches are very inspired people. They love all their clients. Clients also love all their coaches. So we all know that, right? About coaching and clients. There are many schools of thought that say don't get attached to your clients. Nonsense. At some point, we're always attached to our clients because we're holding the safe space for them to share. How can we not, be attached to that space? There are clients I coached 20 years ago. If I see them, I still get so happy that they. Anybody else? Coaches that are off camera, is there anything you want to say? Um, I feel like because you're not on camera, we may be ignoring you. Please go ahead and share.
Cindy, I would like to add here that I think the last point that you shared about attachment in my own journey, what I realized was it's okay for me to be attached with the client in terms of creating that safe space. But as as young coaches, sometimes we take too much pressure on ourselves for the client's outcomes and the result that the client should get. And that used to come really in my way initially in the early years that, did the client get the value from this? That attachment was not something that was serving me. And then I worked on that for myself. And now it feels at a much better place.
Absolutely. Yeah, but that, Reshmi, I thank you for sharing that point. I've seen that with many new coaches. Um, they so dive in, and that all leaning in, diving in process also, they just want to help the client achieve their goals. And then the attachment becomes more taking some accountability and responsibility from the client. But we all know as over time that also takes away client autonomy, right? Then client choices become more the coach choices. So we'll listen to Darcy, and then I was also going to invite you to add any other points, Reshmi. So please, I'm going to re-invite you. But let's listen to Darcy first.
I think what you just said, Cindy, is really interesting to me because I'm a career coach, and one of the reasons why, I mean, there's a plethora of reasons, but one of the reasons why I wanted to do it is because I I over the years, I mean, I've managed lots of people, global matrix teams, I've people, and I felt really invested in it. And I chose career coaching because there was always like it wasn't personal. It's almost always like professionally based. I don't have to take it home. Well, I'm working from home, but I don't have to take it to bed with me. I don't have to think about
Hmm.
it. And it's interesting when you said that, I just thought, why did I choose this sector of coaching? I don't do life coaching, and I don't do life coaching because I have enough problems, and I'm afraid I would take other people's problems to bed with me. So anyway, I had a little bit of an epiphany when you just said that. It didn't occur to me until that very moment as to why I chose it. So I sleep really well at night because I'm just thinking, if they don't go and do what they don't go and do this or they don't go do that, it's just professional. It's not affecting, it's affecting their lives, but you know what I'm saying? It's not a life coaching. It's not an emotional issue potentially, although it can. Anyway, I just wanted to
Well,
share.
an acknowledgement to you because you know what works for you. Yeah. Look, half of the time when we feel attached to our clients, they don't even know that. Because, I mean, as coaches, we're never going to tell them that. Like 20 years later, when I see somebody, I want to just go and hug them. Of course, I'm not going to do it. But I have the sense inside me. That feeling is so strong to want to do that. I'll restrain. So half of the time, those clients we feel attached to don't even know it. Rashmi, go ahead.
I'm good. No, I'm good. I think I understood what you were sharing.
Okay. I want to raise another point. So there's that lovely addition of that marker to core competency 7. If you look at the core competency, it's 711, right? And there's a lovely document that beautifully explains the reasoning behind that addition. The one that had that word knowledge in it. Coach shares knowledge, feelings, thoughts, etc. But the addition of the word knowledge. And it says without any attachment. I can send you that copy of that. I'll send it to Reshmi and she'll give it to you. The reasoning behind it. But what do you think about that? You know, a lot of coaches were really worried about that, worried from an integrity point of view that we were going to now telling the client what to do. We're going to be telling. But what's your sense of that? Do you have any concerns?
Yep, I have a concern. I think that this is the back door for giving advices for some coaches, maybe. I'm sharing the knowledge that you maybe should do that. So you can use this like a back door. But I think it has a big potential too if we are aware of other competences of coaching mindset, of doing something for the client, but not for our sense of having some knowledge. For example, it works like an example, like ADHD coaching. We can use some psychoeducation knowledge for clients just to know what differences could be in brain working for the neurodivergent people, to them to choose from this knowledge what can work for them to plan, not like neurotypical people. So it's knowledge sharing, but it's not an advice. It's just adding some psychoeducation in some subspheres of coaching, something like that.
Absolutely. So it's a very interesting point you said also. It's not it's giving advice, but in a moment, right? Because any kind of knowledge sharing is for the coach's growth and learning. So if you look at it that way, it's for the coach, a point for for the client's learning and growth. It's never for the coach to come across looking like an expert. How do we know that? Because we remain in the role of coach and not a consultant. So even when you're sharing, you are remaining in the role of coach. Coaching is an asking process, an inviting, asking, inquiring process. So even when you share a piece of knowledge, you are still asking the client, how does that sit with you? Is it something you can try? Would that work for you? And you're letting the client then lead the session again. Go ahead, Toby.
It's, I would say that this area is something that I'm constantly reflecting on because I mean, I really, as I'm sure we all do, like, I'm deeply invested in not being that directive advisory person that can really sabotage the coaching space that we're wanting to hold. But I've definitely had moments, sort of, I think back over the last few years of my coaching career where I think what I've done is I've sort of contracted that moment out. So I felt, right, there might be an issue where is coaching the right way forward, or might and that might therapy be in best service to my client. And when we have that discussion, I do find that I'm sort of explicitly contracting out and putting down my coaching hat and saying, can we step back and just explore what might be the boundaries here, what might be the way forward here. And I do think that's leaning into professional experience. And I do think it is advisory, or maybe even, you're offering advice in that moment around boundaries. But I think it's how I sort of contract out of the coaching space and go into that conversation, and then maybe and contract back. It's something I'm constantly reflecting on, how you transition between that advisory role sometimes when you really think you need to, and then you go back to that sort of pure ICF coaching space, if you like.
Yeah. So a moment of knowledge sharing, education, mentoring within a session, it's just a moment of it. As long as embedded in that moment is the client's autonomy, will this work for you? The client can say yes or no. No, I also was working on some new habits, and I read this book, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Is that something you'd like to try? The client says, no, I don't read anymore. I just listen. So, or something like that. No, 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 I don't think. Of course, I'm not going to push myself on the client. I'm going to say, okay, well, what do you do? What would work for you? Then it becomes about the client again. And if you look at the definition of evoking awareness, it invites tools, techniques like powerful questions, silence, metaphors, analogies, etc., etc., etc. That list can go on and on. But evoking awareness invites from the coach, some tools, techniques, etc. Coaches, any comments or anything else you want to share? Any discussion points that you want to raise? Feel free to do so. I'm going to look at my notes and see if there's something that I missed or can add more to you.
I have maybe an interesting thought, that sharing our knowledge, I think we should distinct where is the knowledge and where is the belief. So do I know something and it's a knowledge, or is it my belief and I just believe that it is a knowledge, but it's not? So I'm distinct in it. I definitely share some scientific knowledge I know is scientific, but I will think twice to share some knowledge that more feel like I know something about life or something like this, because this knowledge is more sounds more like belief.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a lovely distinction. Yeah, because it's beliefs always feel like it's right. So are you sharing a belief or are you sharing knowledge? The addition of that was also because of internal coaching. When you do coaching at work, and sometimes if the coach is an internal person at work, a bit of knowledge can get shared. But it's quite robust in its explanation as to how the word knowledge got handed on and how to interact with the client so that they still in control of the session or still leading the session, or that piece of knowledge is applicable to the coaching for them. And they're going to take it and feel quite insightful about it and then expand on it, get some new thinking, then make something of that.
Cindy, what came for me when I was reflecting on this change was that the word insight was removed and knowledge was added. So, how I saw it was that knowledge has been added, that coach is not sharing insight, coach is sharing knowledge so that client can build their own insight based on what the coach is inviting the client to do. So, eventually, the client is responsible for bringing the insight in the process.
Of course, because that's a lovely point. Because after evoking awareness, you're moving on to learning and growth, right? And the learning and growth is all about the client. And you have no choice there but to ask the client, what are you learning about yourself? So it then moves to self. You have choice, but that's where the coaching process goes. Evoking awareness, and then you're asking the client in all this evoking or this new thinking that we've been talking about, is there any learning or what learnings are showing up for you? What are you learning about yourself? I put an analogy for you on the chat about beliefs. I thought that was quite interesting and share that with you. We've got the last few minutes to go. Is there anything? Look, we've just opened a topic and raised some points that we could continue. You could continue in your discussions too. There's so much more to the topic. But anything you want to add, perhaps a question or a comment or something before we round up? I'll give you some self-reflection questions also. Anything? Okay. So here we are, right at the end. I will put up some questions for you. It's been really lovely spending an hour with you. If we had more time, we could have done some breakout room stuff, but anyway, you can do that on your own with your small groups or whatever you have in your space. Coaches, it's been lovely being with you, and all the best in your coaching. Reshmi?
Thank you so much, Cindy. Thank you so much for coming for this webinar. And on behalf of all the participants and ICF Luxembourg chapter, we are sincerely grateful to you for this.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for joining
Bye.
in.
You may want to stop the recording.
Thank you so much for this webinar. Thank you, Rashmi.
Thank you.
You again.